Welcome back into another edition of the Arrowhead Pride Chiefs Training Camp Report. I am Steven Serda. Day 11 of full team practice has wrapped, and the Chiefs are still pretty banged up in St. Joe right now. So let's get right to it with the leader of Arrowhead Pride, Pete Sweeney. Swain, I'm a little ashamed of the amount of time I spent last night watching the Hall of Fame game, but I did win $20 on that awful excuse of a football game.
Yeah, we talked about the coin yesterday. Fortunately, the coin landed on Cleveland, somehow pulling out that game. The backups of the backups of the backups did the job. So I also started 1-0 in the NFL season.
That's how we got to do it, man. It's preseason. We're both winning money. There's good things on the horizon for our gambling degeneracy this season, but got a lot of notes from Friday's practice. Again, no Mike Dana, no Jody Fortin, no Chris Jones still. Defensive lineman Charles Omenihu was held out of practice. L'Jarius Sneed out again. Cornerback Reese Taylor, Kadarius Toney. And Jalen Watson was actually held out of practice on Friday. I think Watson was the big surprise here, but the Chiefs confirmed after practice it was for personal reasons, so it was an excused absence. No reason to worry about the Chiefs cornerback right now.
No, but I did think it was interesting, and just because you had the excuse absence, you wondered who was going to be in there, and we learned something from the excuse absence. Joshua Williams was actually with the twos in today's look, and Echo Boyd-Doe, who was really trying to push for the roster, got the nod to work across from Trent McDuffie, which is a development here, and so you don't like to see the reason why we got to see Echo, which by proxy is because of the injury to Najee Johnson. So the Chiefs are digging deep here, especially with L'Jarius Sneed out of practice. But he had 3 pass breakups. So out of nowhere, Brett Beach might have gotten another one that isn't even in the NFL draft. This was an undrafted free agent. So we'll see. The Chiefs now have room, if he were to push to make the roster, just considering we only have what I would say 5 locks at cornerback. So there is room for another spot there.
And I want to get into the rest of the defense and how banged up they are right now. Thankfully, this roster has a lot of depth at the moment. But you mentioned Echo Boyd-Doe, and at first I was nervous with L'Jarius Sneed in that situation, and now Jalen Watson's out. But thankfully, it's not an injury for Watson, so he seems fine. Hopefully, he'll be back on the practice field on Saturday. But it also seems like rookie cornerback Nick Jones is getting a lot of reps, and like he's getting some opportunities and making some plays in training camp.
I think you're just seeing, and this is unfortunate, but you're seeing what the Chiefs would do in game situations as of right now if, like, they didn't have L'Jarius Sneed with that lingering knee injury. And it seems like Trent McDuffie would stay outside and Nick Jones would be coming in, and they're looking for that third cornerback to put with them. Again, we mentioned Joshua Williams with the second team, so that's where Echo got in the mix. Jalen Watson, like we said, it's excused, so we don't expect that to bleed into too many missed practices.
Yeah. So that Chiefs secondary depth wavering a little bit, but we're still feeling okay right now at this point. And I mentioned all the injuries on defense right now. Still no Chris Jones. Obviously, we'll continue to update that. If anything new comes out, no new news there for the Chiefs star pass rusher right now. But this defensive line is really banged up with Mike Dana out, Charles Omenihu out, and that's kind of opened the door, at least on Friday, for Chiefs rookie first-round pick Felix and Ndike Uzama to finally get some extended looks with the top defense.
Yeah, I think he's all right. I think he started slow, and that was to be expected because he missed a chunk of the offseason with the injured hand. And I think now that he's been able to get a bunch of these practices under his belt. Again, we're in the 11th full team practice today as camp rolls along. I think you're seeing strides. The other day, Steve Spagnuolo mentioned that he flashed a little bit. And yesterday, without, again, Mike Dana or Charles Omenihu in the lineup, we did see Malik Herring and Joshua Kendo getting a lot of time. But today it was Felix's turn. And I thought he rose to the occasion, and we'll see if he gets more opportunities if these guys continue to miss.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make it up to St. Joe tomorrow for team practice on Saturday, I think Felix is a guy you should definitely pay some attention to because he's a guy we haven't gotten to see a ton of as the Chiefs have worked him back in slowly after that offseason injury after the NFL draft. So excited about Felix and what he can bring to this defense. I think he's somebody we should definitely keep close tabs on throughout the rest of training camp. Linebacker Drew Tranquil also returned to practice on Friday. And, you know, he had the neck injury early on, but it kind of just seems like he's a veteran linebacker the Chiefs expect to get a lot out of this season. And like they're just kind of managing him and giving him the veteran treatment right now.
Yeah, and you know what? He just brings another level, I think, to being a coverage linebacker with the Chiefs. I wonder if he pushes to win that dime linebacker role. I wonder if he pushes Willie Gay to maybe have that spot next to Nick Bolton and some of your other nickel looks. And if he ends up being somebody that'll be in the base and push even like a Leo Chanel for that role, then all of a sudden Drew Tranquil goes from not being on the team and to maybe leading Chiefs linebackers and snaps by the way this thing has gone. I just think he's been a really nice addition, plays all three spots. He has that versatility, and I wonder if he's just pushing all those guys for all their spots that they had last year. And if he is, it makes the linebacker room better as a whole, because I think the Chiefs feel like they really like Nick Bolton and what he brings to the table, but you have an ample backup if you do face injuries.
Yeah. 1 week from Sunday is the Chiefs' first preseason game. And it seems like we have already been deep in this thing for a month right now with how long training camp is this season. But moving over to the offensive side of the ball, you mentioned yesterday, Pete, that it kind of seemed like the defense won the day overall. And based on what I was seeing out of training camp this morning, it seems like Patrick Mahomes might have taken that personally on Friday.
Yeah, I did think it was a good back and forth in this particular practice. The Chiefs were able to get in the end zone, but you got to remember it's always a little bit of an advantage for the offense, as this is a passing camp. When the Chiefs offense had opportunities and they did these red zone 11-on-11s, the coverage was pretty good today, and I thought that was a good sign, just considering how many bodies you are missing. That was something I asked Andy Reid about, as you'll hear, I guess, after the break, in just what did he think of the back and forth. He mentioned the Chiefs' ability to cover in the red zone, which again, you're playing against each other, so that means the Chiefs would like to be a little bit better tomorrow in the red zone offensively. That's what you want. You want the back and forth at camp. Andy Reid has said that in years prior. Just you want to see both sides winning. If one side dominates another, kind of a sign of things to come for the regular season. So a good day of back and forth here at Chiefs training camp.
And it's time for our daily wide receiver room check-in. And we all know about the Justin Ross hype and how fantastic he's been and looked. And we're all very eager to see him take the football field on August 13th for the Chiefs and see what he can really do when somebody else is trying to hit him in an NFL game. But today I want to talk about Sky Moore, because I feel like now, with all the hype around Justin Ross and Richie James and Rashee Rice and MVS, like Sky Moore is that second-year player that I think me and you have consistently been like throughout training camp and even leading into training camp. Like, we still expect a lot out of him. Like, Chiefs fans should not overlook him. And it seems like he's kind of being lost in the shuffle right now with the Chiefs offense. But everything that we're hearing out of camp, everything the coaches are saying about him, everything that Patrick Mahomes has said about him is they think Sky is ready to take a huge leap in year number 2.
Yeah, and I just think for me, it's volume. I trust Sky to stay healthy probably the most out of some of these receivers who would vie for leading the room and receiving yards. And I just find him to be this outlet for Patrick Mahomes. You know, when Travis Kelce does get extra attention, he's doubled or bracketed on those plays and even the guy who can get open at any time can't get open. That's when I think he's going to be looking Sky Moore's way. I also think that Justin Watson could potentially be that guy. At least he's going to get the spot to start as we go through the preseason here. And I think that's where a Justin Ross or Rashee Rice could maybe work their way into the lineup. I believe it's going to be Marquez, Sky Moore, and somebody to start the year. I don't think that's going to be Kadarius Toney. I mentioned how I think he'll go on IR. And so that third wide receiver outside, I think, is a role that is in a way up for grabs. But Justin Ross and Rashee Rice got to continue, as they will tell you, stack good practices together, and maybe they'll break through to I think, have an up on that role. And Richie James, to me, is a guy that is going to be in some of those, Sky Moore, McColl type of looks. They're going to be trying to get him the ball and just get the ball into his hands. And for me, he's very dynamic with the ball in his hands. And that's why you see the Chiefs already, using him as a punt returner. It's a receiver room that's really young, and I think a lot of guys. If we get to the end of the season and we say, the receivers for the Chiefs were good this year, that's going to mean that one or two of these guys is going to break out, which I think makes for exciting times here in Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Sky Moore, year number 2, and I highly encourage you, if you're a film nerd and you want to go check some stuff out, go watch the limited amount of offensive snaps that Sky Moore had last season. I know he struggled so much on special teams, but when he was on offense and getting reps, you could see the flashes of what could make him a significant part of this offense in year number 2.
So did you dig inside and go back, tap into tape guy Steve? Because I know you used to watch a lot of tape. It sounds like you maybe got back to your old ways.
I still do occasionally. I still like to look up some individual players, and I think that Sky Moore is just, he can get open with his route running. He's hard to tackle, even though he's not the biggest wide receiver. He's just a bouncy player. Like, he bounces off of tackles. I'm excited for Sky Moore, and I think he's got a really, really high ceiling, despite the fact that they've got a really crowded wide receiver room this season. But Pete, we haven't talked about Isaiah Pacheco, I feel like, very much recently. So can we just get an update on how the Chiefs' second-year running back is looking as they try to work him back in after his offseason injuries?
Yeah, I know that NFL Network reporter James Palmer, in his visit to Kansas City, threw out a date of August 20th when he should be cleared for contact. And if you watch him every day, I feel like he's already cleared for contact despite his non-contact yellow jersey. Now, he's not doing any of those team 11-on-11 drills, but you're seeing him more and more in 7-on-7. He has been cleared to go 1-on-1 against a guy, which we know includes at least some contact. I think what the Chiefs want to hold him back from right now are still those thud type of hit periods, but nothing since camp began has shown me to have any doubt that he will be ready for the regular season, if not making sure that he actually gets a handful of preseason reps to get those hits under him before it really counts. And so far so good with Isaiah Pacheco. Clyde Edwards-Helaire continues to get the first crack when it comes to handoffs, and you're seeing, I think, Deneric Prince and McKinnon really mix for what would be those passing downs with the first team.
I want to remind you guys, if you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you stick around after the break. We'll hear from head coach Andy Reid, running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and guard Joe Thuney from today's media session after practice. Before we get out of here, Pete, any other standouts, things you want to highlight from Friday's practice?
I mentioned Echo. I mentioned Drew. We talked about Felix. I continue to think George looks good in the one-on-ones. I'm always this, but it's just ridiculous to watch the Chiefs interior. They're just an elite part of the team, not a sexy part, but an elite part of the team, and they never really get pushed around. And so, I'm always impressed by that. Deneric Prince continues to be somebody that I've been impressed by, and so again, we'll see how this all translates to the games once we get there.
Again, Chiefs have one more practice this week, tomorrow morning in St. Joseph, Missouri. They head into an off day on Sunday. So, as always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing here on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Follow all of our training camp coverage at arrowheadpride.com. You can follow Pete on Twitter at PG Sween. And we will talk to you guys tomorrow after another day of Chiefs training camp practice.